Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell.
Dr. Blackwell.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Blackwell. And let me say Havaragani, excuse me, and Hotep to my Africana Studies people. And let me hasten to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night, and hopefully never ever goodbye, because I've always found goodbyes traumatizing. I said I, personally, have always found goodbyes traumatizing. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I am the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we are being hosted by our sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, of whom the pastor is my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Della F. Holliness. And you know what they say, when the Baptists and the Charismatics get together, there's always going to be a shouting in the camp. And truly, God has been good to our fellowship, and our communion has been enriched. And we ask your continued blessings and prayers. I know somebody out there praying for us. Everybody can't be hating on us. And that God will continue to bless and prosper the work at the church that He has planted there. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, and one service. All right. This offering that you are viewing is a presentation, is a social justice presentation. And what we try to do is deal with the economic and the environmental or the ecological aspects of our sojourn here on this planet. And what I mean by when I say environmental, I mean speaking about how does the environment impact your health, how does it impact your surroundings, and because in your environment you're born, you grow, you work, you live, you age, and God willing, at the proper time, you pass away. I hate to say that. But all of that is influenced by the impact or the effect of your environment, not only the atmospheric, but also the social environment. And so that's what we attempt to address and point out. Someone wrote a book called The 7 Determinants of Health. And one of the determinants is your income, how much money you make, or what resources you have, which is real wealth, not your income. Your wealth is what is left over after all the bills are paid, and it's just you and the madam, and everything is settled. That's your excuse me, your wealth. Not your income. That's not your riches. Your wealth is what you can actually put your hand on and say, this is mine, and I can do with it what I want, and I can get a loan on it, or cash it in, or sell it. That constitutes economic wealth. And we as black people have a hard time with economic wealth. We can put on a show, but we don't have much money when it comes down to paying the bill beyond the immediate restaurant tab. And so we have to be mindful of both of those things, because their impacts can be dramatic. And they are dramatic. There's no sense in lying. Also, we believe in reparations, and what we mean by reparation, definition of reparation is to make whole again, as if a person had not been injured or had not had something taken away from them. What would their life be like if this event had never happened? And that's where reparations come in. And reparations was from slavery is going to involve economics, because slavery was primarily an economic vehicle. How do you know? Because you had more millionaires in the South from as a result of slavery than you had in the North. They were richer than the Vanderbilts and the Carnegies and the J.P. Morgans. All of that wealth was from slavery. And that's why they fought so hard to maintain slavery. And that's why we come at the end of the year, read our reparations text. It says, and if thy brother or sister, an Hebrew man, or an Hebrew woman be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let them go free from thee. And when thou sendest them out free from thee, thou shalt not let them go away empty. Thou shalt furnish them liberally out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto them. All right, the word of God for the people of God. And so the Bible believes, teaches reparation, way back there. And so that is what we are commanded to do and compelled to do. And the world would have been a better place, surely, if we had stuck to that. All right. Now, we're coming to the end of the year, and I want to go out of this year talking about the conditions and the structures under which we continue to live. We haven't changed the social structure, and most of the structures are biased. They have a racist intent and a racist impact. And if we continue to work within these structures, we're going to have to be mindful of the fact that there are minefields in these social structures that were not put there by you or by me, but they are there. And we have to be wary of them. And I believe we can draw a lot of lessons from the current Israel-Hamas conflict, if you can call it that. Some call it a genocide, some call it a massacre. But Gaza gets their electricity from Israel. So when Israel says no electricity, that means all the lights is out in Gaza. And Gaza gets their water from Israel. So if Israel say, we're not going to give you no water, so there's nothing but thirst in Gaza. And so it's a humanitarian crisis. It's a humanitarian nightmare. It's a humanitarian crime. But no one wants to acknowledge that it is such a crime. And I don't think a two-state solution was ever a realistic option or object. And if it was, they have certainly gone past it over many, many votes in the United Nations. And when I compare that to our condition, speaking of us black people here in America, I ran across a LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, commencement address that he delivered to the graduating class in Howard, at Howard University. Must have been 64 or 65. But in this speech, he says, you do not wipe away the scars of centuries by saying, now you are free to go where you want and do as you desire and choose the leaders you please. You do not take a person who for years has been hobbled by chains, liberate him or her, bring him or her up to the starting line in a race, and then say you are free to compete with all the others, and still believe that you have been completely fair. This is Lyndon Baines Johnson, President of the United States, during the commencement address at Howard University. Listen what Johnson says. It is not enough just to open the gates of opportunity. All our citizens must have the ability to walk through those gates. All right, now I'm switching down to Dr. Jeremiah Wright, who was in a panel, and I believe this was a sermon that he delivered. But it says all people should be treated the same. Those notions of a level playing field lacked any notion of the structural and systemic ways that the race is not fair. For example, think of Usain Bolt or Allison Felix versus you. You got Usain Bolt representing the men, and you got Allison Felix representing the women, but where is the fairness? Now, you're going to run against them? Where you going to win? You understand? So the race, it may be said to be a fair race, that y'all at the starting line, but it is not an equitable or equal race because you're not qualified to run against Allison Felix or Usain Bolt in no race. So that's the question, is it equitable? Remember, Lyndon Baines Johnson already said that you just can't take somebody who has been shackled for years and take the chain off them and say, all right, you free. Now you got to run like everybody else. No, you haven't finished the work. You got to make that person whole, which is where reparations comes in. All right. Let me continue reading. When it comes to the social status, as opposed to white people, the game is structured to make the white folks always win. These are structural and systemic advantages. Like I said, when I started out, this broadcast deals with the economic and the environmental, because in the social structure there are minefields that you didn't place there, but you got to recognize that they are there before you get yourself in trouble. You just can't take life for granted, so everybody's equal and I'm equal to everybody, because some people are not thinking that you are that equal, and you're going to say something to them, and you're going to have a problem. That's why we got all these microaggressions in these Starbucks and the Wendy's and the restaurants and in the stores and the supermarkets and on the airplanes, everywhere, and even in the neighborhoods where black people have took their hard-earned money and have finally got the down payment and all of that together and have bought a house, but it's in a neighborhood that is predominantly white, and what happens? You have friction, you have conflict, you have minefields. Is it fair? But is it equitable? You understand? All right, so all of these things you have to be aware of going in. You must not be blind, because that'll get you killed. All right. Dr. Jeremiah Wright goes on to say, equality works on the naive assumption that fairness means treating all people the same. Equity is based on justice. Equity starts from the premise that for the sake of justice, there must always be a commitment to systemic change and structural change. Now, what he is saying, if you expand that, okay, like you buying a house, well now, you're going to go in that house, if it's a pre-built house, in other words, someone had owned it previously, you're going to have to do some what? Some changes, some alterations, some modifications to make it what you want it to be as a house. And God help you if you took it as a fixer-upper. That is a lot of money out of your pocket. Be that as it may, that house, in other words, your modifications, your changes, your alterations, represent what? systemic change and structural change. You're changing you're adding a room here, or you're eliminating a room there, and that type of thing. Or you're trying to put in a man cave if you're a man, or a woman cave if you're a woman. Try to make that house a home. Is that right? And so it has to undergo some systemic change and structural changes. All right. Continue quoting Dr. Jeremiah Wright. Down here, he says, all the laws on the books of all the colonies from 1630 to 1787 have nothing to do with jurisprudence, but were based on prejudice, tradition, racism, custom, and they were all against the blacks. All right? So after 150 years, one can hardly be surprised at the codification of racism in the Constitution. The Constitution has racism and gender discrimination in its makeup. So that was one of the reasons why when Abraham Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address, you know, those of you that had to learn that in school, Well, if you were in Houston, you had to learn it. It comes to that line when it says, this nation shall have a rebirth of freedom, a new birth. And what that new birth means, that now we're going to drop off slavery over here, and we're going to go down freedom's highway. And so this nation shall have a new birth of freedom. And that was what was supposed to have occurred. And for the first a few years after the Civil War, which ended in 1865, and then what W.B. Du Bois called the Golden Age of the Civil Rights Movement, which was from 1865 to the election of Rutherford B. Hayes. In 1877, the Negroes had, in that little shorter time, had established mandatory public schools. Everybody go to public schools and everything like that. Everybody was voting, and they had the closest thing to an egalitarian society that could be had at that time, given the racial makeup and the racial custom and the racial hatreds and the racial prejudices of the South against the Negro, who had the audacity to remain in his land of his birth, the South, and not realizing the duplicity that was being practiced out of his sight, but was a deadly duplicity, a mortal, lethal duplicity, as it turned out, that was being prepared against him. Remember those black codes that we see in the history books? Those were developed after slavery ended, after the Civil War. Keep in mind that there had been a lot of millionaires that had lost all of their money as a result of the Negroes becoming free. So there was much ill will, not goodwill, much ill will among those displaced planter class when they saw people like you or me riding along in a buggy and a carriage with our wives and everything and our children, acting for all the world like we were Europeans. But the what you call them, the blue bloods, the white aristocracy, were not going to take that lying down, because, like I said, if you throwed away my millions of dollars and now I got to root hog or die poor just to eat every day, I got something against you, man. And you'll be naive if you think I'm going to let that slide, and which is what our people were. You read Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folks, or The Coming of John. That's a very illustrative essay, and it helps you to better understand the animus, the rancor, the rage, the envy. If a person envies you because when they met you, you was at one level, way down here underneath their foot. But now you up there, you're a king and a queen and a princess and a princess. Those people ain't gonna think kindly of you, and you're very naive if you think they are. And they're gonna always be plotting, just like what is going on in this nation. There's always a plot or a bill that's getting passed or a statute that comes up on the books. Just like if you're a beauty shop owner, all right, you done all your beauty shop thing. And now here comes somebody, the inspector in the door, with a new requirement that you got to meet in order to keep on being in the beauty shop business. But what you going to do? You're going to have to meet that. Unless you can band together with enough other beauty shop owners and barber shop owners, and y'all can form an organization and go down and dispute it. But you're not going to just, have an easy ride. No, they're not going to let you have no easy. They being the system, because it's a systemic structure, and it's a systemic structure, and a structural form that you and I are caught up in. It's a web. Dr. King called it a web of destiny, and that's just the way the game is played. You can never be off your guard. You can never be lulled into a false sense of security. You're going to always have to be watchful. This country is on the verge of another election, and we got a person who has sought to put off an insurrection, and but for the grace of God, he would overthrow this democracy. Yet he's on the ballot again, and he's the leading candidate in the Republican Party. And you know who I mean without me calling his name. And if he wins, he's going to dismiss all of these judges and all of these attorneys general that have placed him in this a call to answer before the judgment bar. He's going to do his best to wiggle off that hook. And you see the beginnings of that now when the judge in, is he in Georgia? No. Chutkin has had to put the case against him on hold while Jack Smith tries to get the Supreme Court to make a decision on whether a former president who has caused an insurrection has immunity from prosecution or from crime. Because you remember, Donald Trump said he could go out in the middle of Broadway and kill somebody, and the folk would still love him. That's what he said, and it looks like he might be getting away with it. And so you can see the systemic structure has to be changed. If you're going to buy this Constitution, you're going to have to improve it. I always like what Thurgood Marshall said about the Constitution. He said it was an evolving document. Excuse me. He called it a living document. That's the way Thurgood Marshall said it. The Constitution was a living document. And remember, Thurgood Marshall's teacher, professor, was Charles Hamilton Houston, who said that a lawyer is either a social engineer or he is a parasite on the society. And so you're going to have to continue to improve this system of government that we have. And that's why we all have to get out and vote. We can't be complacent about it. We can't say, well, I thought y'all fought that back in '65. Well, why we got to fight it now? Because the cost of liberty is, somebody said, eternal vigilance. And while I'm wrapping this up, I don't always say to people that I have been studying or reading behind, or I got their books, or I've been looking at their YouTube videos. But you can get in trouble now if you don't give credit where credit is due. They being the system, again, it's always the system that brings the problem. They had even come up with some charges against the late Dr. Martin Luther King about his theses and his doctorates, because they claimed that he had made wholesale quotation and he didn't give credence or credit to the person. You got to have footnotes and footnotes to the footnotes when you're writing a book, because you got to reference them in your bibliography at the back of that book. Otherwise, you get in trouble. You can't do your theses, in other words, to get your doctorate in college without showing who are you referencing, and who is in other words, your theses. You have somebody that you are referencing as the primary, but there may be others who are not the primary or contribute to the primary. So all of that you have to be careful about, so you don't get yourself in hot water. Unless you're a Baptist preacher. The Baptist preacher, you can get away with anything. Please don't do that. All right. As a Baptist preacher, you get away with a lot. I have to give that. You get away with a lot, but you still have to be careful because things will catch up with you, and you must always say, "I heard," which is what we Baptists say quite fluently. And as we begin to wrap this up here, I have two statements that I want to leave with you from the first of the year that I heard from Dr. Brian Stevenson, who's an attorney, a death row attorney, fights for people who are on death row. He had one case that was made into a movie called Just Mercy, and I think it starred Wesley Snipes on the death row as a death row inmate. But anyway, he made two cogent statements. The first part of this year, he was doing the Martin Luther King lecture at the Martin Luther King Center. And this is what he observed. He said, the demography of America is shaped by racial terrorism. You can see the footprint of this trauma all across the country. And as I wrap up here, I think I should leave those two statements hot off the press with you. And as I close out, if you're working on a job and they don't want to pay you, take my advice and do what I say. Don't work for them. Don't waste your life. Thank you, Doc. We out of here. God bless you.
Yeah, some sleepless nights. But when I look around and nothing seems over, all my good days, outweigh my bad days. Yes, they do. I just say thank you, Lord. Thank